Alright, since I'm on an old school techniques, tricks kind of kick today, I'm going to go ahead and work here inside of Krita. We're going to hand paint a displacement or a height map. It'll be kind of fun. So we're going to do a new file, 2048 by 2048, 32 resolution. RGB colored, but it's going to be grayscale. So use 16-bit. This is important though. 16-bit so you don't get stepping issues. Go ahead and click create here. Opens up, white background. Unlock the background. Control I, invert it. And go to the paint layer. Now, how you choose to paint is entirely up to you. You want to work between black and white. Try not to hit pure black or here or pure white, so that way you don't have anything like plateau when you're using this. Okay? And also, you can click this little button up here, and you can do seamless textures. Okay, that's kind of cool thing about Krita. Now you can work in Photoshop or anything else if you want. Well, work with the gray colors. Okay. I'm just going to use this fat marker to get started here. And I'm not sure what I'm going to actually create just yet, but I'm just going to go through it and kind of see what I can do. So this is a kind of an old way of doing things as well. It's really quite simple though. Oh, let's do this seamless as well. Why not? Go through. Find some big shapes that you want. If you're doing rocky type shapes, you want to make like trapezoid figures, trapezoid shapes, something like that. Okay, fun little fact is that if it's a solid color, obviously white would be higher, dark would be further back. So you're not really creating an image, you're just creating, like, you're not creating your normal type of like image you would see in a picture, but you're creating that height map. And so when you do like a smudger, you'll notice here is that when you smudge, it creates a gradient, right? And that gradient is actually flat. And it's a flat surface, but it's on like a slope, basically. Keep that in mind as you're working. If you start smudging things here, smudger, creating little flat surfaces. For like rocks and stuff, this is really good. So you can create some really cool stylized rocks this way, believe it or not. It's still fairly fast. I mean, you could work in Designer, or could sculpt in Blender, but also hand paint. Kind of fun too. You won't see the results though until you get into Blender or another program and start using it as a sculpting alpha. That's okay. Some gradients going. Kind of work it around a little bit. Try to do this fast so you guys don't get too bored here. Try to see how that's all starting to work out now. We'll have some draw issues in Krita because it does a preview mode first. It takes a little second for it to catch up. That's what it's doing. I don't know if I actually have that set. I forgot exactly where you set that, but yeah, under view, instant preview mode, that's what's going on. It's just your computer. It'll let you draw, but it'll take a little second for it to just update, right? So you can do another layer on top. Use a different tool. In this case, I'm just going to use this round marker. Just going to draw on some shapes of rocks or whatever. Get it going. This is where all the fun's going to start happening at, because this is like a cut, basically. Like you can do cracks and crevices this way if you're doing rocks. Pounding them in there like that. You can also do like highlights as well. Some little highlights like that. Probably going to end up smudging half of this back out. See here, it's pretty cool when it all starts to add up. Want to be very cautious though and use very slight adjustments usually. So the only thing you're going to be a little bit strong on usually is the blur. So filter, Gaussian blur, filter, blur, Gaussian blur. So click OK, and then drop the opacity, like a lot. Probably more than you think you should, because this is going to be pretty dramatic even with that right there. Okay, and you can work smaller. So you're going to keep doing layer after layer. You're going to do lots and lots of layers. Just keep adding detail. Trying to work with a blurry image and then sharpen it up more. Careful how you do it. You see I might have a little stepping issue here. Okay. It's grays, so you have to be careful. Stepping is just going to make little lines. Finished piece, right? Doing rocks, I guess. Filter blur, Gausenberg, and more than you probably think you should. Going on. Drop the opacity a bit. Try not to work up usually, meaning like don't try to go to bright white colors and work that way because you'll end up messing up usually. I'm gonna try to work these little crevices and stuff you're creating. Work them down if possible. Working towards black here. You see, every time you do this, add more interest to it. Okay? This one's gonna be pretty vague. I'm not gonna spend a whole lot of time on this. I just add some details here. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Okay. Let's do that marker again real quick. I'm gonna use it smaller on a new layer. Therefore, we need to knock the opacity down. Let's do that. But you can make a little smaller, like secondary details here. Okay. I don't want to get too carried away here, but like that maybe. Okay. Blur it. Blurring it in general is just going to create a kind of like a soft bevel to everything. Click OK and drop that opacity quite a bit. Okay. We're not going to get any detail out of this as long as we keep doing that over and over. And we don't start working smaller and smaller. So you will at some point really have to slow down. Just take your time going through doing really small lines, like small areas. Probably even smaller than that, down to the pixel. Start doing this number, things start to actually get pretty crazy, in my opinion. Very lightly. I'll run around a little bit on it. I was just going to do this very sloppy like, but you'll see how it works out. Not everything needs sharpness to it with this section. Like at this point, you probably don't need to add sharp lines everywhere. Only where you want them. Like sculpting without knowing what you're doing. Kind of. It takes a while to get used to this. Gaussian blurred again. You could also probably try doing like a filter blur, motion blur. Pick a direction that you want. Try doing something like that. You can see that's pretty rough looking though. I don't know if that one will work out too. Maybe a little bit of motion blur to it or a lot mixed with a Gaussian blur on top. Something like that. Use the smudger again. At this point though, if you're gonna smudge things, you gotta do it by the individual layer. Which can be a little bit annoying, but just what has to happen. You can also flatten all the layers if you wanted to. Let's drop this opacity on this top one a little bit. Combine it all. Press Control E. You can flatten all the layers together when you select them. You gotta hold Shift to select them all like that. Leave it full, but yeah, we can smudge this around a little bit. Get some of our shapes back. Some of hard surface kind of stuff coming back here. These like rock shapes or whatever. So this is something I used to do quite a bit of, believe it or not. Wouldn't say it was ever really efficient. It was never really that good of a technique, but occasionally it can be if you're creating like really simple alphas to sculpt with. It can sometimes be faster than actually sculpting something, in my opinion. But it's a pretty tough sell there to do that today, unless you're doing like really simple sculpting alphas, I guess. And like rocks are pretty simple to sculpt. Just gonna run around and lightly touch it everywhere and just kind of make it cloudy looking almost. I don't want to blow away too much of like those little dark areas we created yet. I might not, but some of these like grays we want to also create more or less like edges in them, right? Sometimes that can be useful. This might come out looking a little bit like water though or something. Not careful. Smudgers does a lot of work though. It does create little flat surfaces there. All right, so I'm gonna do one more layer just for the sake of this video, and I'm gonna smudge it at the end. I don't think I'm gonna actually do that one. Let's do this one. Smudge it up. Do like a bunch of little cracks or something. Rock shapes. It can be kind of random. Put them on edges of areas and stuff like that, right? Doesn't have to be real perfect. Like I'm in the crevices. We're still gonna have to Gaussian blur it, but we're gonna do just like a really small amount, I think. Dots and specks and Almost like stippling. So stippling's when you do everything with a bunch of little dots, basically. What it feels like, anyways. Scratches. I'll put some darker line. Some rocks hiding in there. Crack here. Trying to get all these ones going real quick. Very destructive technique, though. Fun, but I wouldn't say a very good way of working today. Definitely want to do something like designer, even sculpting, like brush would be better out. Sculpting and blurring could be pretty rough sometimes. Trying to do a little too much, too many polys. Certainly can try that. Do a bunch of little dots. Bits and crack right. Section. This is gonna look like a sculpt sharp where a crease tool was dragged through here. Is basically what. All right. Let's see. Did I miss anything real big? Let's add some little crack right here. Not right on there. Let's do it right. Kind of like that. It was a little much, but I liked it a little bit. Anyways, this one I'm going to duplicate. You can do it like this as well, where we'll do two duplications. Basically, the bottom layer we're going to blur it, Gaussian blur it. We're going to do this one the most, so that it's like this, right? So this is the idea. The next layer, you would blur it less. Okay, still going to blur it, but just less. Then the last layer, you're going to blur the least amount, right? Still going to blur it, just not as much. Okay. And so all three of these here, the bottom one will turn like 50%. Next one we'll do like a 25, and the last one we'll do like a 10, something like that. You can see it adds a little bit of interest to this, but it doesn't really overdo anything, right? Like we know it's there, it's just not being overdone. Okay, so we save this now. Control Shift and S. We're gonna save it as a PNG file. Place it into rock here. Call it new rock 3, I guess. Save it as a PNG file into an alphas folder. If you have the Sculpt Alphas Manager add-on for Blender, you can get this loaded up pretty quick. Do a new scene. Hit Control 5, right click, shade smooth, right click, convert to mesh. And apply a multi-resolution modifier, subdivide a few times. We're at 300,000. Let's do one more. Got 1,500,000, right? Bases. Go into sculpt mode. Sculpt Alphas Manager. In the preferences of the add-on, there's a link to download this in the description. Set it up, but in the preferences of the add-on, after you install it, you point it to an alphas folder. If you have subfolders, you'll get different categories. Okay, in this case, I had a prox folder set up. You'll see here that one we just created was test rock 3, wherever that happens to be at, or new rock 3, right here. set to tiled right now. Tiled works with seamless textures, by the way, so you'll see how that works here in a second. We want to turn the strength down though. See that we can push this in like so now. All right, so imagine actually spending a little bit of time on this, a little bit more. Just really finessing those values quite a bit. You can get some pretty good results, believe it or not. This tiled one, like a 0.5, 0.5, 0.5 for size. I'll actually make it larger. See how that's working. It's pretty interesting, right? Maybe not perfect right now, but you get the idea. So just to show you a couple other ones I've done. This one, which is a coral. Right? That's all made in Krita. Pretty phenomenal. Right? Especially if you're sculpting on something with that amount of resolution. It's really quite good. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, so let's do a, we'll change it to area plane and set it to anchored stroke. So this one, change the size back to 1. Yeah, this is another just really quick sculpt, or excuse me, really quick height map, painted height map. That one's okay-ish. Same process over and over and over again. Sometimes they come out better than others. You really got to put the time into them though. No, there's no way to cheat it, really. You can kind of cheat it though. So if you paint one, it just looks maybe not the best, but it looks okay-ish. And then you layer that up with, like, say you use a photograph that's just turned black and white and contrasted out. You can end up doing like layers on top of it and stuff too. So it's something to think about. But anyways, that's it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and I will check you out in the next one. All right, take care.